There is a moment that happens in a woman's mind long before attraction becomes desire. A quiet internal shift. It doesn't come from something you say. It doesn't come from how you look. It doesn't come from effort. It comes from a psychological switch. And once that switch flips, desire feels instant. Not forced, not logical, not negotiated. Most men never trigger this switch, not because it's rare, but because they're constantly doing things that turn it off. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Women don't decide to desire a man. Desire happens when their nervous system reclassifies him from safe but irrelevant to safe and compelling, from predictable to grounded and intriguing, from emotionally reactive to emotionally sovereign. That reclassification is the switch, and it has nothing to do with attraction tactics. It has everything to do with emotional positioning. Most men believe desire is created by adding something. More confidence, more humor, more dominance, more charm. But desire is not additive, it is subtractive. It appears when resistance disappears. And resistance disappears the moment a woman feels one thing, that you are not moved by her response. Not cold, not detached, not indifferent, unmoved. This is where most men misunderstand everything. They think being unaffected means being uninterested. It doesn't. It means your internal state does not depend on outcome, and outcome independence is the psychological switch. Here's why this works. A woman's nervous system is constantly asking a question beneath awareness. Is this man stable even when nothing is guaranteed? Most men answer no without realizing it. They answer no when they lean forward emotionally. They answer no when they seek reassurance. They answer no when they explain themselves. They answer no when they react to shifts. Every reaction communicates dependence. Dependence turns desire off. The switch flips only when the nervous system registers self-command, not dominance over her, control over yourself. Another uncomfortable truth is this: women do not desire men who want them too much. They desire men who want without needing. Need creates pressure. Pressure activates caution. Caution blocks desire. The moment she senses that your emotional state will change based on her behavior, the switch stays off. The moment she senses that your emotional state is anchored internally, the switch turns on, instantly. This is why desire sometimes appears out of nowhere, not because you did something special, but because you stopped doing something damaging. Another layer most men never understand is this: desire activates when a woman feels free to choose. Freedom is essential. If your energy feels like expectation, desire shuts down. If your energy feels like invitation without obligation, desire opens. Most men unknowingly project expectation. Expectation sounds like, I hope this goes somewhere. I don't want to mess this up. I need this to work. That internal dialogue leaks, and leakage is felt immediately. The psychological switch flips only when expectation disappears, not verbally, energetically. Another uncomfortable truth is that desire responds faster to calm certainty than excitement. Excitement is volatile. Calm certainty feels safe. Safe does not mean boring. Safe means grounded. Grounded men feel solid. Solid men are easy to desire. Another layer is emotional speed. Most men speed up when attraction appears. They text faster. They respond quicker. They escalate sooner. Speed signals urgency. Urgency signals scarcity. Scarcity activates caution. The man who does not speed up flips the switch because he signals abundance without saying it. Another truth is this: women desire men who do not emotionally explain themselves. Explanation is a form of seeking agreement. Seeking agreement lowers position. The man who is okay being misunderstood feels powerful because he does not need perception to be perfect to remain centered. Another uncomfortable realization is that desire appears when a man does not interpret interest as obligation. Interest is enjoyed, not secured, not locked, not cashed in. The moment you try to secure interest, desire fades. The switch flips when you let interest exist without controlling it. Another deep psychological insight is this. Women desire men who do not emotionally narrate the interaction. Narration turns feeling into analysis. Analysis kills desire. The man who lets moments breathe flips the switch. Another uncomfortable realization is that desire turns on when a man stops monitoring the outcome. Monitoring creates tension. Tension leaks. The man who trusts himself removes tension. And when tension is gone, desire flows. This is why the psychological switch feels invisible, because it's not something you do, it's something you stop doing. You stop chasing clarity. You stop seeking reassurance. You stop adjusting yourself to be chosen. And the moment you stop, something changes. Not in her behavior at first, but in her perception. And perception is where desire lives. This is the foundation. Because once you understand what flips the switch, you stop trying to create desire. You simply stop blocking it. And when desire is not blocked, it appears fast, quietly, naturally, without effort. This is where attraction stops feeling complicated and starts feeling inevitable. And this is only the beginning of how the switch truly works. Once the switch begins to flip, the dynamic changes in a way most men don't notice. She becomes more aware of you when you are not trying to be seen. Her attention sharpens in moments of silence. Her curiosity activates when you don't rush to fill space. This is not coincidence. This is the nervous system responding to emotional gravity. Most men believe desire grows through momentum, more talking, more flirting, more escalation. But momentum driven by effort collapses desire. Momentum driven by restraint amplifies it. Another uncomfortable truth is this. Women do not desire men who try to manage their emotions. They desire men who don't need to. When a man feels calm without needing reassurance, the switch stays on. When a man needs reassurance to stay calm, the switch turns off. This is why women often lose interest after things go well. Because success makes men relax their discipline. They begin leaning, they begin securing, they begin needing, and need kills polarity. Another deep layer is emotional contrast. Desire is not built from sameness, it is built from difference. When a man mirrors a woman's emotional pace, intensity, and availability, attraction flattens. When a man remains himself, regardless of her emotional state, polarity remains alive. Another uncomfortable realization is that women desire men who do not emotionally chase alignment. Alignment feels good, but chasing alignment removes tension. Tension fuels desire. This does not mean creating conflict. It means not rushing to synchronize emotions. Another deep insight is this. The switch flips when a woman senses that your life does not pause for her attention. Not because she wants to be ignored, but because independence signals strength. Strength signals safety. Safety allows desire to deepen. Another uncomfortable truth is that desire responds to predictability of character, unpredictability of access. She knows who you are, she does not know how much of you she has. This balance keeps her engaged. Another layer is emotional pacing during attraction. Most men speed up when desire appears. They text faster, they respond quicker, they escalate sooner. Speed signals urgency. Urgency signals fear of loss. Fear of loss shuts the switch off. The man who stays at the same pace flips it fully. Another uncomfortable realization is that women desire men who do not emotionally collapse into validation seeking. Validation seeking shifts power. Power shifts shut desire down. The man who enjoys attention without needing it keeps polarity alive. Another deep truth is this. Women desire men who do not emotionally explain their boundaries. Boundaries are lived, not justified. Justification invites negotiation. Negotiation collapses attraction. Another layer is emotional composure during mixed signals. Mixed signals are not confusion, they are observation. Observation of whether you remain grounded. Men who react emotionally fail. Men who stay centered pass. Another uncomfortable realization is that desire increases when a man does not emotionally punish distance. Distance is allowed. Punishment creates pressure. Pressure kills desire. Another deep insight is that the switch flips hardest when a woman senses you would walk away without resentment. Resentment reveals attachment. Called acceptance reveals self-respect. Self-respect is irresistible. Another truth is this: women desire men who do not try to own attraction. Attraction is allowed, not claimed. The moment a man claims it, desire fades. Another layer is emotional neutrality under praise. Praise is a test. Men who inflate fail. Men who receive calmly pass. Another uncomfortable realization is that desire grows when a man does not emotionally anchor himself to response time. Response time obsession signals need. Need turns desire off. Another deep insight is this: the switch does not flip because of what you do. It flips because of what stops leaking. Fear, urgency, expectation, need. Once those stop leaking, desire can exist freely. Another uncomfortable truth is that women desire men who are internally still. Still when excited, still when uncertain, still when silent. That stillness becomes a reference point, and reference points attract attention. Another layer is emotional leadership. Leadership here is not direction, it is non-reactivity. The man who does not react becomes the axis, and desire orbits axes. Another uncomfortable realization is that desire strengthens when you stop monitoring it. Monitoring creates tension. Tension leaks. Leakage shuts desire down. Another deep truth is that the psychological switch is fragile, not because it's weak, but because it responds instantly to emotional shifts. You cannot fake this. You either have internal sovereignty or you don't. Another layer is emotional self-trust. Self-trust means you don't rush, you don't chase, you don't secure, you allow. Allowing is power. Another uncomfortable realization is that men often lose desire right after they gain it, because they change. The men women desire never change. They remain who they were before attention arrived. This constancy is what flips the switch fully. Another deep truth is this: desire is not a response to performance. It is a response to presence. Presence that is calm. Presence that is grounded. Presence that does not need outcome. And when presence replaces performance, desire becomes instant. Not dramatic, but unmistakable. This is why some men feel instantly desirable without trying, because nothing inside them is chasing. Nothing inside them is cleaving. Nothing inside them is leaning. They're simply standing. And standing is what flips the switch. This is where desire stops being unpredictable and starts being consistent. Not because women changed, but because you did. Not outwardly, internally. And once that shift happens, the switch does not need to be triggered again. It stays on as long as you stay yourself. And there is still more depth to this that most men never understand. As the switch stays on, something even more revealing begins to happen. She stops watching what you say and starts watching how little you need to say. This is where desire separates men permanently, because at this stage, words become noise, presence becomes signal. Most men sabotage themselves right here. They feel desire growing and they try to match it. They open up more, they explain more, they invest faster. And without realizing it, they reverse the polarity. Desire does not grow through symmetry. It grows through containment. The men women desire do not rush to meet emotional energy. They allow it to move toward them. Another uncomfortable truth is this: desire strengthens when a woman feels she is choosing, not being pulled. The moment she senses emotional pull from you, the switch weakens. Pull creates pressure. Pressure reactivates caution. But when she feels movement coming from her side, desire intensifies. Another deep psychological mechanism at work here is self-location. A woman's nervous system constantly asks, where is this man located emotionally? Is he anchored in himself, or is he floating toward me? Men who float are unstable. Men who anchor are attractive. Another uncomfortable realization is that desire thrives when a man does not emotionally react to praise, interest, or admiration. Admiration is a test. Most men absorb it and inflate. Inflation signals dependency on validation. The man who receives admiration calmly passes. Another deep truth is this: women desire men who do not emotionally merge during intimacy. Intimacy does not mean fusion. Fusion collapses polarity. The man who remains himself even during closeness becomes unforgettable. Another layer is emotional gravity. Gravity does not chase objects. Objects move toward gravity. The more you chase emotional closeness, the less gravity you have. The more grounded you are, the more others move. Another uncomfortable realization is that desire increases when a man does not seek emotional confirmation. Confirmation seeking sounds like, "Are we good? Do you like me? Where is this going?" These questions move emotional weight onto her. Weight triggers withdrawal. The man who trusts his position does not ask. Another deep insight is this: desire responds to emotional economy. Men who overspend emotionally devalue themselves. Men who spend selectively maintain value. This is not withholding. This is self-respect. Another uncomfortable truth is that desire grows when a man does not emotionally frame moments. Framing turns experience into outcome. Outcome kills tension. Tension fuels desire. Another layer is emotional sovereignty under uncertainty. Uncertainty is inevitable. Men who tolerate uncertainty calmly signal abundance. Abundance feels safe. Safety allows desire to deepen. Another deep realization is that desire strengthens when a man does not emotionally track her reactions. Tracking creates pressure. Pressure leaks. The man who does not track remains free. Freedom attracts. Another uncomfortable truth is that desire weakens when a man over-identifies with attraction. When attraction becomes identity, fear of loss appears. Fear leaks. Leakage turns the switch off. The man who remains whole regardless of attraction keeps the switch on. Another layer is emotional non-attachment. Non-attachment does not mean indifference. It means freedom from outcome. Freedom from outcome removes tension. Another deep insight is this: women desire men who are not impressed by desire. Being impressed reveals scarcity. Scarcity collapses polarity. The man who enjoys desire without being impressed by it feels grounded. Another uncomfortable realization is that desire does not grow through escalation. It grows through stability across moments. The man who is the same during excitement, distance, silence, and closeness becomes a psychological anchor. Anchors attract movement. Another deep truth is that desire intensifies when a man does not emotionally seek meaning too early. Meaning closes loops. Closed loops end pursuit. The man who allows meaning to emerge naturally keeps desire alive. Another uncomfortable realization is that desire collapses when a man tries to lock in attraction. Locking in removes freedom. Freedom is essential for desire. Another layer is emotional patience. Patience signals confidence. Confidence flips the switch permanently. Another deep insight is that desire responds to emotional stillness more than action. Stillness is rare. Rare things are attractive. Another uncomfortable truth is that women desire men who are not emotionally reactive to shifts in momentum. Momentum rises, momentum falls. The man who remains unchanged passes both. Another realization is that desire is not about being impressive. It's about being unshakable. Unshakable men feel safe to desire. Another deep truth is that once the switch is on, it will stay on as long as you don't interfere. Interference comes from fear. Fear reactivates need. Need shuts desire down. This is why the psychological switch feels so elusive, because it is invisible, it is internal, and it is constantly being either protected or sabotaged by your inner state. This is the level where desire becomes effortless, not because you figured something out, but because you stopped interfering with yourself. And there is still one final layer that explains why this switch feels instant, powerful, and difficult to undo once it flips. At this stage, desire no longer depends on interaction. It depends on internal reference. She doesn't need you present to feel drawn. Your presence has already registered. And this is where the switch becomes powerful. Because once a woman's nervous system has classified you as emotionally sovereign, it stops reevaluating constantly. It relaxes, and relaxed desire is deep desire. Most men never experience this because they reintroduce instability the moment they feel wanted. They start checking, they start adjusting, they start managing perception. And management kills polarity. Another uncomfortable truth is this: desire collapses fastest when a man starts acting like attraction is fragile. Fragility signals fear. Fear shuts the switch off instantly. The men women desire treat attraction as something that can exist without being protected, because they trust themselves, not the outcome. Another deep insight is this: the switch flips fully when a woman feels that your emotional center cannot be accessed or controlled through behavior. If she pulls back, you don't chase. If she leans in, you don't cling. If she tests, you don't react. That emotional independence creates a sense of gravity, and gravity pulls. Another uncomfortable realization is that desire strengthens when a man does not emotionally reward inconsistency. Inconsistency is observed, not corrected. Correction feels controlling. Control reactivates resistance. Another layer is emotional neutrality under tension. Tension is inevitable. The man who remains calm inside tension becomes the emotional container. Containment is attractive. Another deep truth is this: women desire men who do not emotionally negotiate closeness. Negotiation implies need. Need turns desire off. Closeness that emerges naturally feels earned. Another uncomfortable realization is that desire deepens when a man does not emotionally chase clarity. Clarity feels good, but premature clarity removes mystery. Mystery sustains desire. Another layer is emotional humility paired with certainty. Certainty without arrogance, humility without insecurity. This balance feels rare. Rare things attract attention. Another deep insight is this: desire grows when a man is not emotionally driven by validation cycles, up when praised, down when ignored. These cycles signal instability. The man who remains steady across cycles feels solid. Another uncomfortable truth is that desire intensifies when a man does not emotionally personalize fluctuations. Fluctuations are normal. Personalizing them creates drama. Drama feels unsafe. Safety sustains desire. Another layer is emotional integrity. Integrity means your internal state matches your external behavior. No performance, no masks, no strategies. Women sense incongruence instantly. Congruence keeps the switch on. Another deep realization is that desire responds to non-attachment, not indifference. Non-attachment allows care without fear. Fear poisons desire. Another uncomfortable truth is that the switch stays on only as long as you do not seek to capitalize on it. Capitalization implies extraction. Extraction collapses polarity. The men women desire never try to cash in attraction. They let it exist. Another layer is emotional pacing under momentum. Momentum tempts men to rush. Rushing reveals fear of loss. Fear shuts desire down. The man who moves slowly during momentum feels powerful. Another deep insight is this: desire intensifies when a man does not emotionally audit the connection. Auditing turns feeling into analysis. Analysis kills desire. The man who stays present keeps it alive. Another uncomfortable realization is that desire grows when a man does not emotionally correct perception. If she misreads you, you let it stand. Correction signals need to be understood. Needing to be understood weakens polarity. Another layer is emotional stillness in silence. Silence is not empty. It is revealing. Men who fill silence fail. Men who allow silence pass. Another deep truth is that desire stays alive when a man does not emotionally escalate vulnerability prematurely. Premature vulnerability feels like collapse. Measured vulnerability feels intimate. Another uncomfortable realization is that desire strengthens when a man does not emotionally depend on momentum to feel secure. Momentum rises and falls. Security must remain constant. Another layer is emotional sovereignty during closeness. Closeness does not dissolve identity. The man who remains himself becomes unforgettable. Another deep insight is this: desire remains when a man does not emotionally anchor his worth to how she feels today. Anchoring creates instability. Stability attracts. Another uncomfortable truth is that desire deepens when a man does not emotionally pressure outcomes. Pressure reactivates fear. Fear blocks desire. Another layer is emotional freedom. Freedom is the absence of need. Need collapses polarity. Another deep realization is that desire becomes instant when the nervous system senses nothing is required. No performance, no reassurance, no proof, just presence. And presence that does not ask for anything becomes magnetic. This is why the switch feels instant when it happens, because the nervous system recognizes safety and polarity simultaneously, and that combination does not require time. It requires alignment. Another uncomfortable truth is that most men never experience this because they keep interrupting themselves. They feel desire rising and they interfere. They reach, they secure, they explain, and every interference turns the switch off slightly. The men women desire never interfere. They allow. Another deep insight is that desire is self-sustaining once the switch is fully on. It does not need reminders. It does not need stimulation. It does not need chasing. It only needs one thing: that you remain yourself, unchanged, centered, unmoved. This is where desire stops being something you try to create and becomes something that responds to who you are. And there is one final layer that completes this understanding, because the switch is not just about desire, it's about why it stays. At the deepest level, this is why the psychological switch works at all. Because it is not a trick, it is not a tactic, it is not something you turn on, it is something that reveals who you already are. The switch flips when a woman's nervous system realizes one thing: this man does not need me to remain whole. And the moment that realization happens, desire no longer has resistance. Most men think desire comes from being chosen. In reality, desire comes from not needing to be chosen. Needing to be chosen creates pressure. Pressure activates fear. Fear shuts desire down. The men women desire are not trying to be wanted. They are simply not afraid of being unwanted. That freedom is felt immediately. Another uncomfortable truth is this: desire stays alive only as long as you do not try to hold it. The moment you try to secure it, define it, or protect it, you collapse polarity. The men women desire let desire move. They don't trap it, they don't own it, they don't extract from it, they allow it. Another deep truth is that the switch does not flip because of something you do in the moment. It flips because of who you are when nothing is happening, who you are in silence, who you are in uncertainty, who you are when there is no validation. That is where desire decides. Another uncomfortable realization is that desire is not impressed by effort. Effort reveals need. Need shuts the switch off. Desire is impressed by self-command. Self-command is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not perform. It simply remains. Another deep insight is this: Women do not desire men who are emotionally intense. They desire men who are emotionally contained. Containment feels safe. Safety allows desire to deepen instead of retreat. Another uncomfortable truth is that desire cannot coexist with emotional dependence. Dependence leaks fear. Fear poisons attraction. The man who is okay without outcomes becomes irresistible. Another realization is that once the switch flips, desire does not feel dramatic. It feels natural. It feels easy. It feels obvious. And that is why most men miss it. They expect fireworks. What they get is calm pull, and calm pull lasts. Another deep truth is that the switch is not fragile. You cannot lose it by saying the wrong thing. You lose it by losing yourself. The moment you abandon your center, desire reacts. Another uncomfortable realization is that desire is loyal to identity, not behavior. If your identity stays grounded, desire stays present. If your identity collapses into need, desire leaves. Another layer is emotional maturity. Maturity is not seriousness, it is steadiness. Steadiness is attractive. Another deep insight is that desire is not something you chase, it is something that follows self-trust. When you trust yourself, you stop chasing. When you stop chasing, desire starts moving. Another uncomfortable truth is that women do not want men who can trigger desire. They want men who do not turn it off. This is why the switch feels elusive, because most men are constantly flipping it off without realizing it. They rush, they explain, they secure, they react, and every reaction leaks dependence. Another deep realization is this: the psychological switch stays on only as long as you remain emotionally sovereign. Sovereignty means your emotional state belongs to you, not to her response, not to her attention, not to her validation. And sovereignty is rare. Rare things attract. Now, if this video helped you understand what actually flips desire instantly and why most men unknowingly turn it off, there is one video you should watch next. Because desire does not exist in isolation. It is tested, it is challenged, it is pressured, and how you respond determines whether it lasts. That's exactly what I break down in my video called How Women Test Men, and the one way to pass every time. That video shows how women test emotional stability, why most men fail without realizing it, and how staying centered allows desire to deepen instead of collapse. Watch that next. Because once you understand both how desire is triggered and how it is tested, attraction stops feeling random. It becomes a natural response to emotional self-command. Not what you say, not what you do, but who you remain when nothing is guaranteed. That is the psychological switch. And once it's on, it doesn't need effort. It just needs you to stay yourself.